This is our TMap window. We are working on an input data that we have dynamically generated using T-row generator component in Talend, and we want to perform some operations using this input data. First operation is to merge the first name and last name with a space in between and write it under the column name. And the second transformation that we want to do is add a new column called band. In this band, we are trying to group the employees under 3 bands: band A, band B, and band C. Employees with experience between 1 year and 6 years would come under band A, and employees with experience from 7 years to 10 years would come to band B, and the employees with greater than 10 years, that is when the employees have experience greater than 11, all of them would come to band C. So here we have 1, 2, and 3 employees under band C, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4 employees under band B, and rest of them are under band A. So whatever the band they belong, we want to write that band under the band column along with the other columns that we are writing upon. And then we want to have employee state. And since we know that all of these employees belong to the country USA, we want to print or we want to write the country as USA by default. So these are the 3 transformations that we are trying to look at and that we are trying to do using a TMap. What's the first one? Merging of the first name and the last name with a space in between. What's the second one? Grouping the columns, grouping the employees, and then creating a new column with the band as the column name. And the third transformation is writing a value by default. Here, writing the country name or populating the country name as USA by default. These are the 3 transformations that we're trying to do using our TMap. Okay, let's go ahead and do that. As I said, the left-hand side shows the input and the right-hand side shows the output of the values that we are generating. So since we want to have a couple of columns on the right-hand side also, come to this area and click on plus. So this would add up the columns. So what do we want our first name? So this is nothing but our output. So the out one represents the output stream that we are writing to our next component that we are moving, that is being transferred to the next component from the TMap. So we want to create a schema for this out one also. And the schema, that is where that we define it here. So what do we want our column names to be in the output of the TMap? That is where we write this column names. Okay. So I want this to be employee underscore ID. And this is employee underscore name. And for this column, I want to merge the first name and last name from the input, that is row 1, and with a space in between, and write to the column employee underscore name. And what is my third column? Third column is employee underscore experience. Whatever the experience that it is coming from the input, I'll directly write it to the experience without any transformations. And what is my next column? This is employee band. Okay, as I've mentioned, we want to group it under 3 bands and give some conditions on see how can we give the conditions of grouping and then write the group that it is generated to the employee band. Okay, and what's my next? I want my employee underscore state. So I want to write the state whatever is coming from the input directly, and I want to have employee underscore country. So what is this? This would have, because all of this are from the country USA, we want to populate USA as the default value for this. Let's go ahead and change the types. ID is an integer and the name is a string. Experience is again an integer and band is a string and state is string and country is also string. Let's have the length. I'll have the length as 10 for this. 50. This is 10 experience. Band is also 10. State is also 10, or state can be more sometimes. So let's give this as 30. Then the country is 10 again. All right. Okay. Now let's do the mapping. Employee ID, no changes. Whatever is the input should go directly to the output. So how do you map that? Select this in the left hand side, that is the input. Drag it. You see that mentions that you're dragging one entry and just drop it here. Okay, there is a direct connection that has been established from ID in the input to the ID in the output. All right. So what else? I have some transformations for first name and last name. Let's leave that. So the experience is also a direct transformation, that is one-to-one transformation or one-to-one mapping. So go ahead, take it and drop in the output side. So now we have a one-to-one mapping from the input experience to the output experience. All right. Now we have state. State is also a direct one-to-one mapping. So no changes for state also. Drag this and paste it in the state. Okay. So what are the other columns left? I want to have an employee name and I want to have the employee band and I want to have the employee country. So let's work on band first. How can we do this? There are two ways. You can create a temporary variable. When you click on this where section, this creates some temporary variables. And you can give a name here and you can give an expression here and you can map this variable to here. In case there are two different outputs that you are generating. So let's say you want to write this output to one table and you just want to fetch few columns of this and then write them to a different table along with the name. Then you have to duplicate the work of writing here and then writing here. Instead of that, you can always go ahead with a variable. I'll show that what I meant when we want to give more than one output and how can we do that. For now, let me say this as name. Give the variable name as name and this is of type string. Come to this and click on this ellipse. It would go to an expression builder window. Here we can give our conditions or we can give the functions that we want to use in order to generate a value for this variable name. Talend offers various categories of functions: mathematical, numerical, relational, and string handling functions, date and string functions. We would use them in our upcoming use cases. But for now, what do I want to do? I just want to merge my employee first name and employee last name with a space in between. How do I do that? In order to access any value that it is coming from the input, start it with the input row number. So that means this is row 1 here. So the input link name is row 1. So go ahead, type row 1 dot and then you can do a control tab or you can always see the various values or the various column names that the row 1 already has. So we have an employee ID. Because employee ID is already mapped, not able to see that it in the first list. So it gives you the list of columns that are already there in the row 1. So what do I want to do? Row employee first name, that is row 1 dot emp underscore f name plus is a concatenating operator in Talend. So when you do a plus, it concatenates the prefix and suffix between plus. So that means whatever the value that it is there before plus and whatever the value that it is there after plus. So I want a space here, right? So I'll give it space in double quotes. As I have already mentioned, any value or any string that you're passing as an input in Talend should always be enclosed inside double quotes. So we have a space inside double quotes and then concatenate operator again, that is plus, followed by employee last name. I think this is clear, right? Yeah. So that is how it is.